welcome to this July 20th, 2020 Eugene Urban Renewal Agency public hearing. Thank you all for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables us to meet, hear from the community, and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials page. If you join the meeting via computer, device, or phone, your microphone, webcam, and phone are automatically muted when you enter the meeting as an attendee. There is one public hearing on tonight's agenda, so another reminder for those of you viewing and hoping to call in. We are only accepting testimony on the topic of tonight's public hearing, which is the Park Blocks and Farmers Market project. So there's not a general public forum. We're not hearing testimony on other topics tonight. For those wishing to testify, please raise your virtual hand to join the speaker's queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. Requests will be accepted until the first person to testify begins speaking. The meeting moderator will unraise or disallow any requests to speak that are made after the deadline. When the hearing begins, our meeting moderator will announce two speakers' names at a time. When it is your turn, the moderator will announce your name and unmute your microphone. You will have 3 minutes to speak. If there is testimony you are not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different manner, please feel free to contact any one of us individually or together via email or voicemail. And now with this opening meeting, public hearing on Park Blocks and Farmers Market project. Manager, would you like to introduce the topic?
Mayor, I've actually asked Will Dowdy if he could just make a couple of intro comments because of the complexity of the urban renewal piece.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Agency Board. I'd like to introduce this public hearing, which is the culmination and cap of an extensive public engagement process involving thousands of people across the whole city in multiple public events and online sessions. This public hearing is about whether the Park Blocks and Farmers Market projects should move forward, either together or separately, and if so, how they should be funded. This hearing is part of the required urban renewal approval process that was established by the Council in 2016 for the implementation of 4 projects identified in the Urban Renewal Plan: the UgeNet fiber network, the Farmers Market project, the Park Blocks and other downtown open space, and 1059 Willamette, also called the old LCC building. Urban renewal funds are limited by state statute to spending on improvements within the urban renewal district boundary. They may not be spent on operations or outside of the district boundary. With the 2016 plan amendment, Council further limited the funds to these 4 projects. This hearing is an opportunity for community members to comment on whether 2 of these projects, the Park Blocks and Farmers Market, should move forward, and if so, whether Council should use the urban renewal funds identified in the Urban Renewal Plan. The project designs included in the Council packet in Attachment B are the result of extensive public engagement process, and that has a vision to provide a permanent location for a year-round public farmers market, create a central gathering space for both the immediate neighborhood and broader community, strengthen 8th Avenue as downtown's connection into the river, and continue the momentum of downtown revitalization. The Agency Board has a work session scheduled for next Monday at the 7:30 meeting to consider tonight's comments and possibly take action. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we open the testimony. For those who wish to testify, at the beginning of your testimony, please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. You will have 3 minutes to comment. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light and beep indicate the end of the 3 minutes. I now open the public hearing, and moderator, how many people do we have lined up to testify?
I count 9 at this time.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Our first speaker will be Jack Richardson, followed by Brett Golonka. Jack, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I was trying to figure out if I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, good evening. I'm Jack Richardson. I am an owner of a local farm, Organic Redneck Growers in Leeburg. So outside of the Eugene, but Eugene is my my town. I'm also president of the Lane County Farmers Market Board. Ordinarily, we would have a number of us farmers and market supporters in the audience here at a council meeting, all wearing straw hats. Given that we are in different times, I am speaking for the market and its supporters tonight. Lane County Farmers Market thanks the council for its ongoing support for the market and your continued work on the Eugene Town Square project. The market also wants to thank the entire community for the support of the farmers market during this ongoing public health crisis. Through the tremendous support from the community, the city, and Lane County, the farmers market has continued to sustain operations at our Saturday and Tuesday markets and to continue to provide access to fresh, healthy produce and vital financial support to our farm and other local farms. The farmers market supports the town square concept plan and encourages the council to take action to move the project forward. To reimagine Town Square will provide an enhanced community gathering and event space, creating significant and needed improvements to the space used by the farmers market and the Eugene Saturday Market. These markets fill our park blocks with fresh food, art, music, and are a cultural and historical centerpiece of our community. Thank you for involving both markets in this Town Square project planning process from the beginning. As the plan concepts emerged, the whole community was invited to come out to pizza meetings and gatherings in the park to share their thoughts and ideas. It was inclusive, creative, and engaging, and it was open and a fun process too. The farmers market has three important goals for the project. First, it is important to us to remain in the same location. This space has history for us farmers. We've been selling on the park blocks, so I'm told, for over 100 years. Its location across the street from the Saturday market creates unique energy that contributes to the success of both markets. Both markets at this location contribute to the ethos of Eugene. Our second goal is to have more space. At the height of the season, the farmers market is bursting at the seams. We cannot accommodate all the vendors who want to participate. The needs of market vendors and customers to sell, buy, gather, and to be a community are improved with this proposal. Our third goal is to create sheltered space to facilitate our extended market season. The main seasonal market runs April through mid-November. The holiday market starts in early December, and the winter market starts early February. I know I'm about out of time here, but we wanted to thank you for your continued support, and don't forget to eat your vegetables.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Brett Golonka, followed by Tyler Stewart. Brett, do we have audio for you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Brett Golonka, and I am speaking on behalf of the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce this evening. We, alongside with many businesses and community members alike, are eager to see the development of the new farmers market and park blocks come to fulfillment alongside other downtown projects. It is an exciting prospect that will create space for community bonding and will positively contribute to the overall economic health of our city. However, we must approach this development with sober realism. There are not enough funds to complete these endeavors. Although we understand you are considering an amendment to the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan, we would like to propose you inquire about an alternate solution. We ask that you consider what would be possible if we expanded the district border to include the 5th Street public market expansion, and also to lengthen the term of the district. This alternative provides a potential taxable revenue stream that could contribute to the district and fund the projects on our downtown plan, and possibly additional projects as well. Our ask is for you to direct staff to look into what including the 5th Street Market Expansion Project into the Urban Renewal District would do to possible funding availability for these projects. The 5th Street project has not been fully assessed to its full 70 million plus valuation. This implies that the increase in taxable value could flow into the district and be utilized for other needs as well. We hope you fully assess our proposal. Urban renewal is an effective tool that will help propel this community into its long-term vision. Now more than ever, we need to not only preserve the economic development tools we have in our tool belt, but to consider leveraging these tools to their fullest potential. Thank you for your time and service in making our downtown the best it can possibly be.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tyler Stewart, followed by Michael Deluise.
Hi, my name is Tyler Stewart, and I am in Zone 2 in South Eugene. As much as I like the idea of a renovated farmers market and park blocks, which I would use, we can't spend any agency or non-agency funds in our current climate of multiple injustices. What other ways can we use the renewal district funds to fund projects that are for crisis, like the Unhoused, projects that bring a real need, real justice to those in our community? A while back, Emily Simple had the idea of hosting a shelter downtown. Initially, I had reservations, but we need a place for our folks that are unhoused, and this would be a great opportunity to bring some life and housing to them. Reallocating, ideally, it would be great if we could reallocate all urban renewal district funds to things that bring real life, real needs. A shelter, I think, would be a great idea. As much as I like farmers market and park blocks, we have a real crisis here. We have a real crisis here. We have racial injustice. We have the unhoused, you name it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Winter is coming, and it could get a lot worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Deluise, followed by John Borofsky.
Said I had to unmute myself, excuse me.
We can hear you now.
Good evening, Mayor Vinnis and councilors. I'm Mike Deluise. I'm chairman of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the DNA to ask for your support to move forward quickly, creating our highly anticipated new town square. Through surveys and many, many meetings, we've shared our ideas and a desire for completion of this project. Frankly, neighbors downtown and throughout the city were looking forward to enjoying this community resource this summer. We could really use it now. As we learn to live in our new reality, whatever that is, what better addition could be added to our community than a beautiful, comfortable, spacious space with opportunities for social distant outdoor entertainment, shopping, and socializing. Our new town square is needed now more than ever. Yes, there are other things we have to do, but this is one of those things we should definitely seriously consider moving forward with quickly. Please help it become a reality. And thank you again for your support in this and everything else, especially in our neighborhood downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Borofsky, followed by Lars Osterberg.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Councilors acting as directors of Eugene's Urban Renewal Agencies. In regards to your June 22nd meeting regarding the agency's budget and priorities around the farmers market and the park blocks, as a community, we are excited and supportive of these projects moving forward. This has been a well thought out and long time vision of what our downtown has been striving to become. This vision would not have been able to be achieved had it not been for the tool of urban renewal dollars. This tool has proven valuable in many of the city's priorities, redeveloping the pits into vibrant workspaces, our fiber optic networks, and now the redevelopment of the Riverfront eWeb property. Now you have the opportunity to fulfill the promise of a vibrant farmers market and park block, as well as adding workforce housing to the LCC building. Unfortunately, the funds are not enough to complete what has been envisioned. The realigning and adjusting the cap to fund the market seems like a prudent course. However, that leaves us with a phase 2 and no path forward to fund it to completion. We feel that there may be a workable option that may help the community achieve its goals. You are contemplating an amendment to the downtown URD plan. The amendment as proposed would realign money from one project to another. There is another option that could fund the park blocks, LCC, as well as other emerging needs that are becoming evident. Parking in the area will be an issue with the loss of the butterfly lot, as well as the old City Hall block as it transforms into a new justice center. The agency could expand the border of the district to include the new market district between 5th and 6th Street, also lengthening the term of the district. This would realize significant new revenues to the agency, as well as bonding capacity. This revenue could fund these and possible other needs that may arise. Timing of this issue is important because the Market District project has not been assessed as of yet. The $70 million in taxable value would flow into the district. This could be in the millions of dollars that could be utilized to fulfill ongoing projects, as well as the possibility of funding a parking structure in the district. And timing is not too late. There is talk of a phase 2 of the Market District that could be considered. Our hope is that you will consider this option and ask staff to research it to see if there is a feasible option. The urban renewal tool has been effective and can continue to help move the community towards its long-term vision. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lars Osterberg, followed by Laura Vetch.
Hello. My name is Lars Osterberg, and I'm here with my wife, Andrea. And hello. We're Eugene residents and frequent Saturday market goers, and we love it. We want to voice our support of the park blocks and farmer market projects. This project is a wonderful way to revitalize our downtown space and bring life to a central feature of our city.
We were really impressed with the way that this project incorporated community feedback into the design. They had an imagination lab. They were always present at the Eugene Saturday Market, and the citizens of the city really were a part of creating this project. This market, the Saturday Market, the Farmers Market, they're so important to Eugene. They're central, they're kind of the central landmark downtown, and we always bring any visitors that come to see us to go see it. We love that this new design incorporates a permanent home for the Farmers Market to be able to operate year-round, along with reimagined space that can host concerts and has improved accessibility to allow everybody to enjoy it.
So in short, we really hope the City Council will vote in favor of this project. We believe it's what our city needs, and we will yield the rest of our time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Laura Vetch, followed by R. Will.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. My name's Laura Vetch. I'm a Eugene resident, ward unknown at this time to me. If we're talking about opening up these farmers markets and whatnot, we need to think about how we're utilizing the dollars in these funds to make sure we're elevating BIPOC vendors if we do open these markets for attendance. Also, we need to think about how we're going to limit cases for COVID. I know like it's skyrocketing lately, and that's definitely a major concern. This funding could also be going to help the unhoused. We could put money into healthcare and other social things that we need. We should be focusing on the pandemic and on systematic racism at this point. But if we do end up opening these for more attendance, we should find a way to use this funding to help BIPOC people in our community get their goods out there and become more prevalent in the community. Furthermore, the Eugene Police Department's long history of brutality, rape, abuse, and killing of its most vulnerable Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and other people of color, LGBTQIA+ people, women, and unhoused. This indicates a need to divert funding from an institution that clearly protects and values the property rights of the privileged over the lives of the poor and marginalized. The Eugene Police Department's irresponsible and dangerous use of military-grade weapons and riot gear against largely peaceful protesters over the past 3 decades indicates a need to immediately...
You will have an opportunity to address the police department at the public forum next week. This is a forum about the farmers market, so please, we welcome.
I yield my time. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Arwell, followed by Zondi.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Ward 4. Tonight, I'd just like to urge you in the strongest possible terms to please reallocate all of the funds from the URD away from the unnecessary projects such as renovating the park blocks or finding a home for the farmers market, and instead use them to find homes for the unhoused people in our community. This is the priority. This should be the priority. I'm sure you're all aware we are about to have an even bigger housing crisis than we have right now. It does not make any sense to me at all that we should be spending a single cent of money in this city on anything but finding homes for these people and providing public health resources. Additionally, let's see. Yeah, I mean, urban renewal, I think that's just a euphemism for gentrification. I'm worried about how if these spaces are changed, are renewed in such a way that we're going to be harassing more people who are unhoused to look out for the business interests, as opposed to, valuing people who have been marginalized and have needs. So, yeah. And also I'd just like to throw in there, defund EPD while you're at it. Okay, have a good night. Thank you. I yield my time.
Next speaker is Zondi, followed by Matthew Yook.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Plans for the park blocks and the farmers market should not move forward. We are in a historic time due to the Black Lives Matter movement, due to the climate crisis, due to the economic crisis, the health crisis, as well as the long-standing crises of occupation and the charade of democracy at every level. This historic moment calls for major change to all plans. If you think the protests are going to end, you are wrong. I advocate that you reallocate all current downtown urban renewal district funding away from unnecessary projects, such as renovating the park blocks, and toward needs identified by transformative justice experts in the BIPOC community, and toward basic community needs, such as a downtown shelter. A shelter out on 99 where people suffer an 18-year shorter lifespan is abhorrent. I also advocate that you end the downtown urban renewal district mechanism entirely. Thus, you will end a downtown landowner wealth concentrating tax scheme, and you will grow the general fund budget to support transformative justice demands. To expand the urban renewal district to include the 5th Street public market would also be abhorrent. Former Mayor Brian Obey and his grandson Casey Barrett already benefit from a MUPD exemption on the Gordon Lofts, and their building benefits as well from the Trump Opportunity Zone, so that they pay no capital gains at the federal level. You wonder why we don't have federal funds for what we need? Well, you foster this investment in the Trump Opportunity Zone. Defunding the URD is less important than defunding EPD, yet it is a counterpart in transformative justice. Defund EPD, defund the downtown URD, no money to gentrifying infrastructure such as the park blocks.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Matthew Yook.
Hello. Hi. Sorry. My name is Matthew Yook, and I'm a resident of Ward. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Of Councillor Jennifer Ye. It was Ward 5 for a while, but it got switched out with this little bubble that sweeps in my apartment complex, which seems a little awkward, but sorry, I digress. So I've been a fan of farmers market, that idea of redistributing food from local growers that are doing it in a responsible manner, that is hiring people from our community to make sure that people are getting them essentials. The idea of a year-round covered space is phenomenal to help facilitate that addressing of food security and food sovereignty. Although I remember the first time I'd heard this idea theorized about creating that market space downtown, it had incorporated low income, high density housing atop those indoor structures. So that way, not only could we provide a space where folk could vend their produce locally, cutting down on that carbon footprint, but then people that were working downtown could also live there and then get food that was fresh, nutritious, and supporting local farmers simultaneously, creating that idea that we've got people living that can patron and create that vibrant market space and that vibrant community that we kind of want to see and are trying to figure out how best to place that. I think it's rad that OB Industries sounds like they're volunteering some market space for parking, because it sounds like parking is a great issue. And they mentioned that parking is a concern to them. And so, right on, that's in very close proximity that I think would be beneficial to increasing not only the ability and availability of their contribution to our general fund, but then could also help development and not take away from that prime space in downtown Eugene. And so I definitely encourage taking that Fifth Street market space and creating more parking that'll make it accessible as they're asking. There's gonna be a huge budget shortfall. I don't know how it's gonna pan out, or the best way to move forward. I definitely am a fan of creating more ways that local producers of food can get that to the local community. And so making sure that people can also have housing cut out of any urban renewal development is something that we need for sustained development and for our future as a city. So I please ask you, if there's any development going on, any type of renovation, that we include low income, high density housing on these transportation corridors and next to places that provide needed social services.
Thank you. And that concludes the speakers that had signed up before the cutoff time.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica. That was very smooth, and appreciate the people, everyone who came to testify about this proposal before us. Are there any questions or comments? Let's see, I do have two. I know Betty and Councillor Taylor and Councillor Siret. So Councillor Taylor, take it away. You're still muted, Betty.
I'm not talented at technology. I think the farmers market's the very best thing we have in downtown. And I'm enthusiastic about anything that continues it and improves it. Though I don't know that it needs to be improved in a way. It's great as it is, except now when we can't get close to each other. I think I'm totally opposed to expanding urban renewal. As much as I like John Borowski, I disagree with him completely. I think, though, there are two prominent, talented architects have commented on our plans, and I hope the city manager is looking at their comments and considering whether there should be changes in the building that's planned. But aside from that, anything to further the farmers market is great. As for comments about homeless shelter. We did vote to have a homeless shelter down at one point, never happened, but we do need a homeless shelter downtown. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Syret and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Thank you, folks who gave us input. You know, I think this project is definitely going to help working people, the farmers of Lane County who sell at the market. An improvement in the park blocks, if we're able to get that done, will help the also hardworking people who sell their wares at Saturday market. None of those, I think none of those people could be considered, you know, upper middle class folks who are, you know, gentrifying the area. So, and the farmers market in particular is an important economic driver for our city, brings fresh food into our city, helps in terms of public health in that way, as well as the economic aspects. And then I know we had been talking about the label of town square and we weren't changing it for our official process, but I'd just been thinking about that a little, and I'm sure staff has too, but one thing that I think is a really nice ring is community commons, or even central community commons could be a nice reframing of that part of town. So I am intrigued, actually. I know it's not supported by some other councilors, but I am intrigued by the idea of the expansion, and if that was a way that we could capture some more revenue, which would help us with the workforce housing that we want to build, and could help us build other housing if it really realized a lot of funds. So I am interested in exploring that. I don't know if a motion needs to be made. It probably does. But first I wanted to ask, would such an expansion benefit the OB company in any way?
Well, I think pretty much all of the downtown businesses benefit from the investments that are made in the downtown. So
but
I don't see
the OB company wouldn't get some kind of subsidy or, you know, any kind of financial return. That's just having to do with what the tax assessment is on their building.
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding. We obviously, we haven't explored this, so that's something we could make sure we made really clear if you want to direct us to explore this.
Just like the people who own the Wells Fargo building don't get any particular benefit out of the urban renewal other than the projects that we might fund with the money.
Correct.
Making downtown more usable and active. All right, well, I'll wait and see what other councilors have to say and if anyone else has comments on that.
Okay, Councillor Clark and then Councillor Zelenka.
Thank you, Mayor. Sarah or Will, I suppose, is the current surface and underground parking lot used by the county that's behind the state building, is that within the current downtown urban renewal district?
No, it's not. It's outside the district.
How far outside the district? Where's the boundary from there?
I believe the boundary is directly across the street, including the Graduate Hotel.
All right. I am open to listening to more about this idea of expanding the district, but I would think we should be concerned that there's an awful lot of folks who will be against it. I can think of a couple off the top of my head. For those that don't know all the details about tax increment financing, it's essentially borrowing against the future value of an increased value of an area in order to finance its renewal now and get to that increased value. That's the purpose of tax increment financing. And so for us to include it right before it gets finished so that as soon as it's assessed, that huge new increase in value suddenly gives us new money is very creative thinking, but it's not. I mean, you create a urban renewal district for the purpose of renewing what isn't renewed, you know, and I think there's an awful lot of folks, especially in wards 1 and 2, who are going to have an issue with us doing that, but I'm at least open to listening to it. So, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, so the right now, the property tax from that new development would go into the general fund, correct?
Correct.
To the general fund and all the other taxing districts.
Right, and if we change it to urban renewal district, it would no longer go in the general fund, it would go into the urban renewal fund and can only be spent within the urban renewal district and only on projects that are in the plan, correct?
Correct.
And so is that tax increment from those developments that are under construction already accounted for in the financial projections of the general fund moving forward?
No, I don't believe that we've included that yet. We would wait until we had updated information from the tax assessor.
Yeah, so the trade-off would be things we could do in the general fund that we couldn't do in the urban renewal district. And so you'd be taking that substantial amount of money out of the general fund, which has lots of flexibility to use for all sorts of things like homeless shelters and other kinds of things, and being only usable in the urban renewal district and urban renewal district projects. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It limits our flexibility, and if the Park Blocks project is the third on the list of things to get funded, I don't think that's worth it to go and try to expand the district. So I'm not real interested in expanding the district or extending the time frame on it to make those things happen. I'd rather see us have the flexibility to use them for services that we're talking about, the human services we're talking about, and the homeless services we're talking about over the next 6 months.
Councilor Zelenka, I do want to clarify that at least we don't specifically call out future property taxes on projects like that, but we do assume a rate of growth of property taxes and development that's related to historic building permit patterns. So it's captured theoretically, conceptually, but not specifically by that project.
So if we diverted it to urban renewal district, then our projections of the budget hole deficit in general fund is going to get a heck of a lot worse.
It's not that specific of a tie one to the other. I just didn't want to say we don't account for any of that. When we look at property tax growth, we always assume a level of growth. So it might not have any impact because I don't know what the specifics are in this project, but we can look into that if you want us to do this work.
Well, and aren't we projecting general fund deficits?
Yes, we're projecting over the next several years at least a 7.6, I think is the number we talked about last week, in just the general fund. That doesn't include the other funds that are being impacted by COVID, like the road fund and the cultural services sub-fund, parking, and the ambulance transport fund.
So I don't see how this diversion to the urban renewal district can make that picture worse. So another reason not to support it. Thanks.
Okay, Councilor Semple.
Thank you. First, the happy part, Councilor Syret, I love Community Commons as the name. I think that's great. No surprise, I'm against the urban renewal district. Our general fund needs money, and we're talking about my ward, but I don't think everything can be downtown, downtown, downtown when we have many crises at our doorstep. I think having a farmer's market is essential. It is employment, it's sustainability. I might not be totally enamored of the design. I wanted more trees, but I think we should go forward with it. Park blocks, the concrete's got to be fixed and we need a bathroom, but the rest of it can wait. I remember listening to council raise the amount and extend the time, and I'm not willing to do that. I don't think it's equitable, and I'm just not going to do it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments? Thank you all for your insights, and thank you to the folks who came out tonight. And so with that, we are adjourning the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency and reconvening the City Council work session in order to wrap up our final discussion on public safety. We have one more motion to put on the table. So Councilor Ye, I'm just not going to waste any time. I'm going to turn this right over to you.
It's actually broken into two. I first really want to thank Councilor Evans and the mayor and all the staff who have had to listen to me talk at so many meetings over the last. I am so sorry. That is how I think, and I really appreciate you accommodating that. So it is in a file. I'm going to switch here so it might look like it's weird while I'm reading. First I have to take back the motion. Oh, I was going to sound so smart. Okay. I need to withdraw the motion made at the June 24th meeting related to this issue since the new motion is different. And I don't remember who seconded it. Maybe someone does. Claire.
Claire, did you second? Okay.
And so, Councilor Syrett, do you consent to the withdrawal of the motion?
I do.
Okay. So that motion now is off the table and you can start afresh.
Thank you, Catherine. All right. All right, so this is the first of two related motions. So I move to create an ad hoc committee to review current police policies utilizing Campaign Zero's outlined policy solutions and the President's task force on 21st century policing, and prepare and submit a report to council recommending policy changes to current police policy. This work shall be completed by January 31st, 2020, after which time the ad hoc committee will dissolve. The ad hoc committee shall be comprised of 26 members to include 2 representatives from the Civilian Review Board, Police Commission, Human Rights Commission, Black Unity, Centro Latino Americano, LULAC, NAACP, Blacks in Government, Transponder, the 15th 9th Youth Advisory Committee, Asian Pacific Islander Community Action Team, Eugene Islamic Center, and a community yet to be identified community Indigenous Peoples Group. In addition to the 26 committee members, councilors can join the committee as non-voting participants. City councilor members will serve as participants for the purpose of listening, learning, and asking questions to better understand the community concerns and the recommendations that come from the committee. Each group will select 2 representatives to serve on the ad hoc committee and must notify the council of the selected representatives no later than September 1st, 2020. The group's notification to council of the group's 2 selected representatives serves as the appointment of those 2 people to the ad hoc committee until the committee dissolves. No proxies will be allowed for appointed members. Any seat on the ad hoc committee not filled by September 1st, 2020 shall remain vacant for the duration of the committee, and quorum shall be determined by the number of filled committee seats.
Second. Sounded very smart.
Unmute. Okay, I have Councilor Clark and then Councilor Syrett to speak to this.
When we do this sort of thing, we typically talk about our opinions or our thoughts rather than question one another. But as the person who's making a motion, if you would, Jennifer, I would like to ask a couple of questions about your intent and what is this special committee intended to accomplish that the discussion sessions in Emily's motion doesn't accomplish already?
That's a great question. So I think what we're the intent, and Councilor Evans, feel free to jump in. We worked on this together. The workshops are focused more on budget issues, and while policy obviously and budget obviously interact, this group would be looking more at actual procedures and policies rather than necessarily the money that's attached to those.
Thank you. that's something that we have the police commission to do. So how would this committee operate differently than the police commission?
So that's true. And it's a lot of work. And this committee was actually requested by the Police Commission and the Citizens Review Board. So this is in response to direct feedback we are getting from that body who does this work.
Yeah, Mike, this particular committee is going to be much more diverse than what our current police commission is.
If I could, Counselor, I apologize. I wanted to say that I thought that's why we extended applications and got 120 some of them, was to look at the diversity of the police commission. And so the challenge I have with this is, at its core, I love the idea of hearing from more diverse groups of people and hearing from people who are members of communities that have not been heard well and who have not received equal justice to everybody else. And I want to hear from them. The challenge is the way this is worded. It only gives them the framework of, number one, the thing that Chief's already said he's going to do in 21st century policing. And the other thing is the 8 points of the zero. I've forgotten the name of it. I apologize. I'm looking to read it here. Anyway,
Campaign Zero.
Campaign Zero. Thank you. And as I understand it, as I've heard the mayor say, we've already instituted 6 of those 8. So I'm not understanding how this is actually listening to a group of folks about not receiving in policy the level of justice they would like, which I do want to hear, as opposed to we want to hear about the framework of these specific things, most of which we've already done, and how the police commission with their newly constituted membership can't do that. There it is.
Do you want to answer that, Councilor Evans? Your mute was
Well,
off.
at the time, there wasn't new members on the police commission. You know, and I think that having a broad call out to our entire community makes sense. And what we really need to do is to drill down on some of the issues that have been brought up, like use of force, appropriate tactics to use to, you know, deal with a particular situation. Those are all issues that have been brought up in the whole Black Lives Matter movement here in town. And I think the best way for us to do is to get a variety of opinions at the table to talk about these issues.
But we don't. We have a special interest group of opinions, not a variety. And that's the challenge I'm having with it, is that it's not a variety of the whole community. And it's going to be talking about whole city policy. Now, I don't mind the idea that we want to hear people, but if they're going to provide the sole policy recommendations rather than the police commission, which is a more well-rounded group, it doesn't represent the total community's voice. And this is, I want to be careful. We're not presenting this as this is the community telling us to do something versus this is a series of special interest groups telling us to do something. And by the way, when they report their policy recommendations to the council can recommend them to the chief, but the chief has the ultimate authority to take them or not. And I think we're wading into some sketchy ground in the process of that as well. And I'm running out of time, so I'll let others talk for me.
This is to produce one recommendation. There are going to be numerous recommendations that are made to council over time, but it's our effort to do outreach, to bring, you know, the community, particularly the community that has been most marginalized, into the conversation and discussion, and to hear from more than just one voice representing the community.
I agree with that.
And a recommendation, you know, a policy recommendation, you know, from this group, you know, I think would be appropriate, along with other recommendations from police commission and other related committees that we have.
will council then be in the position of needing to recommend to the chief, who would have a hard time saying no, that he ought to take these recommendations from this small sector or group?
Mike, I'm going to give you a second round. Okay.
Okay.
Second round.
I thought we were still talking. So
can I speak real quickly just to the authority issue? Right now, Chief Skinner absolutely is the one that is establishing the policy. That is through some delegation though. So ultimately, the council still can be the policy making body for the city through adopting code provisions. So you can direct the city, council ultimately will have a couple of options. You can adopt code provisions, and you have adopted policy through code provisions, including some of the offenses that you have and various things. You could direct the city manager to do things, and if she doesn't do it, you always have the authority to fire her. And then you have, so you still, it would not be a recommendation because you don't have the authority to direct Chief Skinner. So you would not be taking recommendations and then recommending them to Chief Skinner. So it would be either in your policy body as the code or directing the city manager.
Sorry. Okay, Councillor Siret, then Councillor Zelenka, and Mike, I've got you in a second round. So.
Thank you, Mayor. I might need a second round. I've got a lot of thoughts and some suggestions. I'm concerned. First of all, I support the intent of this motion and may end up supporting it pretty close to how it is. But before I speak to that, I think part of the reason for this approach would be to add adding some urgency and focus to the work of reviewing policies in terms of systemic bias, systemic racism. The police commission meets once a month. There's only so much they can get done. And I think this will accelerate important work and help give confidence to those who are currently skeptical that we are able to deliver public safety in a way that meets their concerns. So I think that's the framework that I'm thinking about this in. I got some input from some very knowledgeable and skilled members of the community of a whole framework of a task force that we might use that would branch out and not just look strictly at police policy. I think it might be too challenging to try to flip this into that. But I wonder, I'm concerned a little bit about naming the specific groups in the way that we have, because I think there are other groups out there that may be well poised to give input. And I know you guys worked hard to connect with folks on that, so I don't want to discount that. But I wonder if instead of articulating who all the groups are in the motion, that we delegate the appointment of it to the mayor to determine who those groups are. So that's one suggestion. The other one is a 21-member committee is super difficult to work with. So I was on Mayor Piercy's opportunity task force for homelessness, and that had about 20 people on it. It was challenging. So my second suggestion is, what if we had one representative and an alternate who were appointed, and then we could still have that body and the other folks supporting, but not 21 people sitting around a table together. And then I think it's important in terms of naming the members of the community that we want to see being able to be part of this is folks who work with people who experience mental health challenges. So if we are going to name groups, then I would like NAMI named, but if we're not going to name groups, then I would like NAMI or a equivalent organization to be invited to be at the table. So those are my thoughts right now. I'll wait for a second round or see how the conversation goes.
You might want to tell people what NAMI is.
National Association on Mental Illness.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, Councillor Zelenka, and then Jennifer, Councillor Ye, I have you back in the queue. Is that correct? And I've got Betty. I've got you.
Did Councillor Ye want to respond to? I knew she wanted to respond to a couple of things, like in particular the why the groups were named?
If you want me to, or I can wait for my turn.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as you can imagine, the initial thoughts, the list was very long, right? It just kind of brainstorming. And I will admit that this group is not perfect, right? I don't know that such a thing exists. And I think that's some very good feedback. I think NAMI is obviously a hole. I think there are other holes, and we're not going to fill them all, because we had a staff and I and Greg, we had a lot of discussion about size, and they're comfortable with the size that it's at. Even though it is large, they feel like they can handle it. But yes, so there is a point where you get, and it becomes very unmanageable. The reason there was a lot of discussion about the 2 members or 3 members or 1 member, these are not going to be easy discussions, and we're asking people to come to the table that we've already recognized have been underserved in our community, and asking them to come alone to a space that they may not feel is safe. It can be intimidating. So the idea was that if you have, and this is a terrible way of describing it, but a committee buddy to go with you, you feel like you have that support, that when you bring forward an idea, there is someone who knows where you're coming from, that may be sitting next to you or at least across the table. That was the thought over the 2 people. I think NAMI is a great addition, though. However, yeah, not everyone is on. I guess my answer is not everyone is on here, and we are acknowledging that, and hoping that these workshops, like the ones that we just passed, will be opportunities for some of those folks that we are missing.
Alan, do you have more to ask or say?
Oh yeah, I like the way that this is crafted. Actually, I like the committee buddies. That makes sense to me. You know, it's 10 community groups plus 2 from the Human Rights Commission, 2 from the Police Commission, and 2 from the CRB. So it does represent that. It's very not dissimilar from the recommendation that actually came out of the Police Commission at our last meeting. So I think that the bigger tent is something I've been advocating for, and having that be broadly represent the community, and especially the groups that don't necessarily get to have a voice, is really important in this process. The number 26, you know, that was about the same size as the mayor's CRO ad hoc committee that we just did, and I was on that, and a couple other counselors were on that, and I thought that worked fairly well, and it was reasonable. It wasn't. It was a large group. We had to have a big space, but it worked well in terms of being able to facilitate the conversation. I think everybody got heard, so that's important. And the large enough group without being too unwieldy. And I think 26 is good. On the council representation, I think it's very important for the council to be engaged in this. It's a community-based committee. We're asking for the recommendation, but the council needs to be very engaged in this and listen to it beyond the committee of an official place on the committee, not necessarily a voting place, but be at the table to hear it, or be at the virtual table, as it will be. But having us all engaged in that, and having a process where we are part of that committee so we can understand what's going on, and not just at the end get a report that we then read. That's not the same kind of quality of engagement, and it also leads into, I think, better buy-in by the council if we're all engaged and we participate in that process. So I think that's a good recommendation, that we be non-voting members of the committee. So I like the way that this is put forward, and I appreciate the work that Councilor Ye and Councilor Evans put together, and all the staff and work that's been put into this to make it work. I have a question for the city attorney. Does this, having the council on the committee, it's still going to be a public meeting, but it's not a council meeting, and we're not deliberating towards a decision. They are. Does that, other than just it's already going to be a public meeting. Is there anything special that we would need to do or that would get in the way of the council participating?
Well, if you have 4 or less counselors attending the meetings and participating, and the way I was thinking of the manner in which counselors would be part of the committee and part of the meetings would be similar to how the mayor functions for the budget committee. The mayor is not a member of the budget committee. There's 16 members, 8 counselors, 8 citizen members, but the mayor attends and she sits at the table and she participates. And that's the way I was understanding that you as counselors would be for this ad hoc committee. If more than 4 attend, it does become a council meeting. And so it would, yes, this is a public body because it's making a recommendation to you all, which is a public body. And so it's already going to be a public meeting and the members are already going to be public officials. But it would need to be, so if 5 or more of you are going to be attending, it would just need to be noticed as a joint meeting of the city council and the ad hoc committee. So it would change.
So other than notice, there's no real difference in the way that the committee would act because they'd still be working and they could go through the whole process of having the committee people speak, and then they could ask councilors if they have any questions or comments. Correct. And it could be a separate type of, okay.
So we just want to know generally who's going to be coming so we can notice it right and comply with public meetings law.
Okay, Counselor Taylor, and then Counselor Pryor.
Thank you. I'll use the time that Alan didn't use. I don't think we need another committee. I think we have a city council. We were elected by the public to make policy. And we have a police commission already, which is supposed to make policy recommendations. And I think that's enough. I don't think we need another committee. And I will vote against it. I think it's, if you want to hear from the people from all those groups that are mentioned in this motion can speak to the council. They can have a meeting among themselves and decide what they think and speak to the council. They can speak to the police commission. Anybody, but if you're trying to include everybody, that doesn't nearly include everybody. There are lots more people in the city than that. And I think it's just wrong to, we found out from the committee on STRs that committees don't always work. The size of it doesn't bother me so much, it's just the idea of the committee. I was in Kathmandu where they have 135 counselors, but only 35 of them meet regularly. And Louisville, Kentucky has a huge council, but they don't all get to speak, and certainly not speak more than 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Pryor.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the idea of putting this kind of a workshop together because of the value it can have in exchange of ideas. And that's different than what Councilor Semple was proposing. I think it works with it, not in competition with it. With regard to the size, I don't have a problem with the size. Right now, I'm serving on a committee in Salem that has close to 40 members, and it seems to be able to work perfectly fine. And if there's any sort of drilling down they need to do, they can break into subcommittees. And this group could have focus committees that then work on a specific question. That's what the homeless group did, the Mayor's Homeless Task Force. So I'm okay with that. As far as the membership goes, yeah, I think we really need to be thoughtful about which voices are heard. I appreciate the list you put together, and that could be a starting point. Councilor Surratt's idea of being able to have the mayor work, say, with this list to maybe fine tune it, I would be fine with that. This is the basic group. And why I think this group was important as a starting point is, to me, this group is a representation of the equity versus equality question. Because if we're struggling to try to create a committee that has equal representation of all of the different people in town, that's not the point of this committee. I think this committee is trying to get at the notion of equitable. Sometimes there are groups who are underserved, underheard, and underrepresented. And sometimes the equitable solution is to give them a voice and not to try to be equal to everyone, but to elevate certain voices that we don't hear from. And I think that's the real value of what Councillor Ye and Councillor Evans are proposing here. Is this is an equity group. It's an effort to try to get at a more equitable perspective and voice. And so I'm supportive from that standpoint. This is not a group that's trying to equally represent all of Eugene. This is a group that's trying to be equitable for people that generally aren't heard, to make sure that as much equitable representation is here as possible. I would say let's be thoughtful to using this as a starting point, but let's say maybe if there's a group like NAMI or maybe one other group that's underrepresented that we think of, we might be flexible on this because size is not an issue for me. But I think it's going absolutely in the right direction, and I can be supportive of this. And if you want to make a tweet here or there for membership, that's perfectly fine. And the only final addition I would add is in the second paragraph, it's completed by January 31st, 2021, because January 31st of 2020 is already passed.
Okay.
That's a friendly amendment.
So I have a Councillor Clark and Councillor Surratt for second round.
Yeah, I'm wondering, in the conversation leading up to forming all this, was it just Jennifer and Greg, or were there other counselors involved in that? Because this is the first I've heard of it, and I got to be honest, I'm a little bummed out that we're doing this much work to make these decisions outside of council meetings and then present it as if it were a foregone conclusion. And this is the first I've had a chance to read it, was in the email today. So were there other counselors involved in this discussion? Because I wasn't. Okay, I'm seeing no. Okay.
At all, or since the 24th? Because we discussed it on the 24th.
I meant since, yeah. The challenge for me is, and I'm not picking on Alan despite how much I like doing it, but when he just got done saying just a few moments ago that this is a whole community-based committee. Those were his exact words. I wrote them down. And my point is this: I agree with Chris entirely. If we're going to hear from a sector of our community that never gets to be treated adequately and justly and never gets heard, I'm fine with that. That's awesome. I think we should do it. But if we're going to try and present what they're saying as representative of the whole community and with the authority that, well, we have to accept what they've recommended because the whole community just spoke to us, which is how this was kind of getting presented, that's a problem for me. But if we're going to consider it in context, then absolutely, I want to hear what they have to say. And the groups are fine. I think that's where you get into problems with identity politics, because somebody's going to get left out that has a problem with it. But the other piece is, are there other groups that then have a right to be heard on an individual basis as well that aren't in here? And on what basis would we say, no, you don't get to? So I'm much more interested in, again, hearing from underheard communities about how they could be treated more justly and with greater equity. I'm absolutely interested in hearing that. But I'm less interested in hearing them say, I think you should alter policies in this fashion, although I'm willing to. But only limiting it to just these policies when maybe that's not going to cover what's most important to them, I think is a mistake. So there's just, I could vote on this if it was recrafted in a way that covered those issues. I can't vote for it the way it is because I think it's a mistake. Although I absolutely agree with the goals you're trying to accomplish, I think we're opening the door to an awful lot of problems. So if we can recraft it or take a few more days to talk about it, that's fine. But otherwise, I can't support it as it is.
Okay, Councillor Surratt, and then Councillor Zelenka, and then Councillor Ye.
Thank you. Yeah, so I am still concerned about the specific naming in the motion. I think, you know, there are other organizations. There's GLAD, which is another Latino organization. And so I know even if the mayor had the power to appoint, there might still be people who felt left out. But I would feel more comfortable if we didn't have those folks listed in there, but I'm getting the sense that the maker of the motion isn't willing to change that. So I'd like to move to amend to provide that the mayor has the power to appoint additional members.
I'm not sure we can do that, Catherine.
No, I mean, so we would need to change a couple of things, because the total number by code, you have to establish for the ad hoc committee the total number of members that is going to be on the committee. So you could you could set it this way and then amend it to say the mayor could come back to make a recommendation for additional members, and you could amend the total number of members but by setting it, the code requires that you establish the number at the moment that you're establishing the committee, which would be tonight. If you vote and act tonight, you need to set it tonight. So perhaps the addition of the mayor can return with recommended additions or something along those lines.
Catherine, could we do, because originally the mayor and I actually discussed this, Claire, and could we just add like what, 2 or whatever we think is appropriate, and say that the mayor has four so many at-large positions that should get appointed?
Why should I worry?
I'm sorry. So an additional 4 members total, or 4 groups?
4 members.
4 members.
At-large positions that would be filled by the mayor. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Claire?
Sure, that would help.
That would put us at 30, right?
Yes, correct.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was less. Oh, right, you expanded to 26. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a huge committee, but if staff is saying, they can manage it. And I do appreciate what you said about people coming into a space solo versus with a partner. I think that's really valid. And I do think what we're trying to do here is not hear from the whole community, but to hear from folks who have not felt connected with the process. I mean, Councillor Clark, you've mentioned that folks from your ward, when we would have in-person meetings, told you they didn't feel comfortable coming downtown to give public comment. And I would say that there are folks affiliated with these organizations who feel the same way and who may not even feel comfortable logging into this meeting to give public comment. So this is an opportunity to kind of shake things up, shake the tree, get some input from folks who we may not have been serving as well as we should have been. In fact, we probably haven't been. The other concern I have is the scope of what they're going to look at. I think your intention is for them to look at police practices that intersect with the community. But as you know, Jennifer, police policies encompass all sorts of things. How you wear your uniform, how you deal with each other internally. And so you're not suggesting that we look at those. I think you're really suggesting that the focus be on, use of force, stops, de-escalation, bias-free policing, and other policies that regard interactions with the public.
The reason, and Councilor Evans, feel free to disagree with me, but the reason why the Campaign Zero I thought was a good platform is it's broken up into 10 areas, right? And you can kind of use it as a way to focus the group, and they don't have to spend as much time on each one. You can just say, what, we're not interested in this one. We're gonna, I think part of what I like about this group is that we've given them some flexibility to, on their own, figure out what they're going to do within a hopefully helpful framework that helps focus this discussion, so it's not so broad that you could talk about what color is the uniform or that kind of stuff, right? To give it some type of focus. But
all right, so it lays out a parameter of, we want you to focus on these topic areas. And I apologize, I didn't get to look at that before the meeting. Is there any, and I know this would expand their work, but I'm wondering, it's not always just the policing, but also what we ask them to police on. So in terms of code, like what we consider a violation versus a misdemeanor, is that encompassed in those frameworks that you're referring to?
Would it be helpful? There's only 10. I could read them really fast. So it's end broken window policing, 2, community oversight, 3, limit use of force, 4, independently investigate and prosecute, 5, community representation, 6, body cameras, 7, training, 8, end for-profit policing, 9, demilitarization, and 10, fair police union contracts.
Okay, so it doesn't quite get to what I was thinking about. So I'm going to go over my time real quick here, because separate from this, because I'm going to support this as it is, I'd like to see the mayor to consider setting up a greater task force to look at other aspects of city policy, which might include our code, our violations versus misdemeanors, that follows a model that was provided by community members. And I think you got that framework. I think it's very thoughtful and would move us towards the kind of policy review I think we need to undertake broader than just police in terms of looking for equity and ferreting out historical racism in our code and policies. So I will follow up with the mayor on that proposal.
Did you want to make a friendly on your thing?
I'll need a third round.
Okay. All right, Alan, and then Jennifer.
I could do it, Claire. So there was a reason it was a council committee versus a mayor's committee. We usually use a mayor's committee actually because it's a lot easier to construct. There's less rules about how it gets done. So it's more difficult to actually do a council committee. So I applaud doing it and adding that in. So I would make the friendly amendment that we add in 4 more members, add 4 members appointed by the mayor as a friendly.
I'm okay for that officially.
I'm okay with that.
And then the other one, the thing that Claire brought up is the way that this is policy, the way this is written, it says review current police policies utilizing the Campaign Zero and the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, maybe to limit the scope, instead of utilizing, you could say related to, and then that defines the scope a little bit more. So I would make that as a friendly to substitute related to Campaign Zero's outline for policy solutions and the President's Task Force instead of utilizing. As a friendly amendment. You're muted, Jennifer.
Sorry, I was reading it. I don't think that, as long as, Councilor Evans, is that okay?
Then you don't get into things like uniforms.
I accept Alan's wordsmithing.
Okay, we're good then.
Chris. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think it does merit a different look than just the police commission. It does merit a bigger tent. I don't think, however we do this, we're going to involve everybody that absolutely should be involved. But this is a darn good list. I think that Jennifer and Greg have contacted most of these groups to see if they would, before you actually said their name in public, that they would be willing to participate. So I think most of these folks are already on board. So, which is a good idea. And so I think the way that this is crafted actually makes a lot of sense, and I'd support it.
Okay, so I have Jennifer back in the queue. It looks like I have Mike with another round. So Jennifer, do you have something to speak to, and then Mike?
So thank you, Alan, for bringing up the committee. I wanted to bring that up about the counselors being on it and how that affected the notice and stuff. And so thank you, Alan, for bringing that up so that there was full disclosure on that. I wanted to just really quick appreciate what Mike or Councilor Clark has been saying about how this is a bigger conversation. And I appreciate the idea that we need to push this beyond police and have more of a larger conversation. I think that's something we need to keep in mind. And I just wanted to say that I turned in a work session poll today on the topic of equity and community engagement, policy development, and policy delivery, which I hope you will all support. And but but just the idea that this is not the end, that this group should and cannot be all we do, even with the other, you know, even with Emily's motion, you know, needs to be a priority to us, and it needs to be an ongoing priority. And it's going to take multiple groups and multiple times of us proving that we really care what people say and that we're actually going to do something with that information. Because we have not historically done that. And that has been part of the problem in getting these groups to agree to be on this committee, is that our crisis is not their problem, as one of them told us. And, you know, you can't just come to us every time you have a problem. And so we have to earn that trust. And he's 100% right that it's going to take more than just this group. This can't be the end all of this discussion. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate my colleagues speaking about this the way they have. I think I've heard sufficient amount to change my mind and vote in favor of it. And the thing that gets me there is I heard almost everybody say no, they don't expect that this is a representation of the community as a whole. This is a very narrow segment that we're hearing from that has been underheard for a long time, and we need to hear it. But we also then, all of us, need to take that into context and not adopt all suggestions and swallow them whole, but understand them in context. I do have a concern that we're setting up our chief, though, and I really like what he's been doing. And here's the example. Let's just say that one of the policy recommendations under the rubric of union contracts, it deals with what the legislature and others have been talking about in the way of qualified immunity. You take that away, and the chief already knows that you're going to have an awful lot of officers who don't report for work or quit. So he's not going to adopt that, I wouldn't think. And what happens when that's the big policy suggestion of the group? I think we're putting him in a position to have to say no to things that may be challenging, that concerns me. So he can speak for himself on that, but I will probably vote yes on this, but I'm very hesitant because I think this needs more work before we pass it. It's a pretty important thing for us to be doing, and I really think we ought to try harder to get it right.
Greg, did I see you? Councillor Evans, were you waving? Yeah, go for it.
This work is critical at this time and at any time. I know that this was not going to be a totally exhaustive list, and it was not going to represent every corner of our community, not even every corner of the communities of color are necessarily represented in this. But the idea is to start someplace and begin to move us forward in a direction where we are now living up to our mantra of having participatory government. For years, I have talked to people about serving on this committee, that committee, other committee. They don't have time. They don't see the relevance of it. But this may be one of the times where we are going to encourage, more people of color and more people who have been left out of the conversation to become part of the conversation, and to have a significant role in that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, great. So I have Councillor Syrett a third round. Do you need it? You're good? Okay, so are we ready? Are we clear on the motion on the table? The only amendment that I'm recalling other than a linguistic one was the 4 additional.
So the number of the total members comprised is now 30. And with the addition that the mayor will select those 4 members, select and appoint those 4 members. The word utilizing was changed to related to police policies, related to Campaign Zero's outline policy solutions, and 2020 was fixed to 2020.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're ready for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opposed. 1. Okay, that passes. That's really excellent work. Thank you all very much. And I know that Councilor Ye now has a second motion to put forward.
Yeah, so this is related to the first one. All right, gets to the concept of committee member compensation. I move to direct the city manager to return to council in September with a funding strategy for compensating the ad hoc committee members at $15 an hour for all meeting hours, and the mechanism for establishing this 15-hour payment to the committee members as an official compensation package.
Second.
Okay, do you want to speak to this?
I do. So as you all know, we compensate the folks who are on our equity panel for the CRO. This is a standard practice nowadays, that whenever you're asking an underserved or oppressed organization to help you fix your problems with serving them, that you compensate them in some way. However, the way our city code is established, talking with the city attorney, we don't really have a mechanism at this moment to be able to compensate a committee created by council, so this would be asking the city manager to come back with a way in order to do that for these members.
Okay, I see Councilor Clark. Question, comment?
Sorry about that, Mayor. I was just wondering if the manager has any idea how many hours we're talking about at $450 an hour, and where that money might come from.
That will be part of the plan that I bring back in September. I mean, obviously we have bigger financial concerns,
Right.
and it's hard to know how many times this committee will meet, but if it's scheduled to end at the end of January, I believe you said, was it the end of January or the beginning? We'll calculate out
the end.
We can calculate out what we think that is and how we would propose funding it. And then that will be your decision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Zelenka, did you have a comment?
Yeah, having done this before, it ends up being a ton of paperwork about keeping track of everybody's hours. So it might be more efficient and easier if you figure out how many meetings are going to be and how many hours it's going to take, and then grant them a stipend and just say, we're going to pay you that amount of money. And then nobody has to do the bookkeeping that occurs. So maybe we could also look at that option as opposed to having a whole bunch of people do timesheets for this process. But I like the overall concept. I think it's a good one. It's something that we should have done a while ago.
Okay, Councilor Syret. You're still muted.
I think the city manager might have been formulating a response.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was actually going to suggest the stipend idea as well, as long as it came out to that $15 an hour. But also, I mean, I've worked with, union negotiations where there's pay for the union members sitting at the table, and you just have a sign-in sheet when they come to the meeting, and then that's how you track who was at which meeting, and you know how long the meeting was because staff was there monitoring the length. So there are administrative ways to get at that, but if the city manager wanted to bring back both models, that would be fine.
I see Councilor Ye doing the no nod.
No.
Are you,
I think that's fine.
Are you open to both models coming back?
Yeah, we could just add or similar stipend. I don't know, Catherine, how would we stick that in?
Or an equivalent stipend.
Yeah,
equivalent
you could
stipend.
say members at $15 hour for all meeting hours or equivalent stipend.
Right. The only concern was we weren't sure how many hours, but we can probably estimate with staff that are planning to facilitate.
Okay, that's excellent. Are we ready for a vote, everyone? All in favor of this motion, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1. Thank you very much. And that passes. That was really an excellent night of work. Thank you very much. I think you all as a council took a couple of really important steps forward in this very challenging conversation. So thank you very much. Appreciate your hard work and have a good night. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you, Greg.